You're listening to the Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast, and I'm Lou Temlett. I'm guessing you're having a good day because either you've been on the mats, considering getting on the mats, or maybe you're continuing to make the sport as inclusive as possible. I'm so happy you're here listening or watching this episode. Please don't tap out before the end. When you want to create a better training environment, start a jiu-jitsu school. I'd like to welcome Chelsea Lee to my podcast. Hi, Chelsea. How are you?
How you doing? I'm good.
I am doing very well, thank you. It's great to see you at a distance, Chelsea, because you are notorious for wrist locks, and I have been wrist locked by you.
Yes, I mean, I feel like that's everybody's story. I think Haley called me a bully the last time I rolled with her because I wrist locked her. So it's just, it's a state of being.
I love it. Okay, so you need to tell me where this wrist locking, apart from at blue belt, maybe earlier or later, where it all started.
It actually started because I train a lot of gi. I'm primarily a gi athlete, but every once in a while, like about once a year, sometimes less frequently, I decide I get like a wild idea that I'm going to go and do some no-gi. So I've been doing no-gi Euros pretty consistently, so I have to really focus on doing a lot of no-gi when I'm doing that, and I hate it. But I do it anyway. And one of the things that I found over the years is that if you are primarily a gi player and you do a lot of no-gi with other primarily gi players, you don't see a lot of darces and anacondas and stuff like that. Yeah. And then I started doing more of that, and I realized that I needed to have some kind of an answer for that. I started hand fighting with the grips, and I started to realize that I can use bending people's wrists, like wrist locks, to escape a lot of those kinds of positions. And it just kind of trickled into the rest of my game. So it started as like a defensive thing, primarily associated with no-gi for me. And then it just I realized how easy it was to get a hold of most people's hands. And I just started doing it across like a lot of my game. And it became a running joke at the gym, but it also is a really good way to kind of force people out of the little shell that they create for themselves. Because even when I'm rolling with a big guy, most of the time I can pull out a hand. So just start digging in there. And, eventually if you can pull out a wrist and you start to bend on it, elbows pop open and all kinds of stuff happens. So
that sounds horrific.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the fact that actually a wrist is relatively achievable in the body part. So when you're kind of trying to get a kimura or a leg lock, there's a lot of body to deal with. And you've just focused in on that small element and making it work for you almost on every single occasion.
I try to, yeah. I'm really small, like I'm very short. I'm only about 5'2". I was 5'2". Now that I've been doing jiu-jitsu for like 20 odd years, I'm probably less than 5'2", if we're being honest, but I'm very short. I don't have a lot of length. Because I'm quite small, I don't have a lot of power compared to many of the people that I train with, and I have to focus on things that are going to actually work. I can't burn a ton of energy trying to yank out an arm bar on somebody who can bicep curl me. It's just not a good use of my time.
I like hearing the efficiency, because I think a number of us in our early days of jiu-jitsu, we try and do all the things all of the time and kind of try and collect the submissions or the techniques, but actually just honing down and going, what am I really good at? How can I utilize that almost in every opportunity? Has there ever been a time where you haven't been able to kind of accomplish wrist locks, or have you always been good at them?
No, honestly, this is only in the last few years that I've kind of gotten good at them, and like I started using them extensively in my game. Like I said, a lot of the reason that I use them so much is because they do expose other submissions to me. So most of the time, if I'm bending on somebody's wrists, it's really to get at something else. And if I am wrist locking someone in the gym or whatever it is, it's like it's very gentle, and it gives them the opportunity to offer something else in exchange, usually.
That sounds completely evil, Chelsea, but I know what you mean.
Well, I figure you give somebody a choice, right? Like, I can continue to pull on your wrist, or you can give me your arm, Maybe you have a better chance of escaping the arm bar.
Either way, you're getting submitted by Chelsea.
Yeah, right. That's the goal.
Oh, I love it. And I think, having the submissions as a goal, I've only just kind of started to convert my mindset. Whilst that is ultimately the game, when you're learning, there are so many things, like I said, to learn that you forget the goal. And I think refocusing back on the goal of submission, and equally, submission grappling as a concept, I think is the way forwards to enhance all of our mindset and game in the whole of the jiu-jitsu world. But we'll talk about that in a bit. But you mentioned the gi earlier, that you're primarily a gi player, which I absolutely love. I love seeing people in the gi. That's how I started. Tell me about your kind of mindset and thinking around the respect it feels like for wearing the gi within Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Um, Honestly, uh, I think that both gi and no gi have their place. I have a heavy preference for gi. It's just always what I've enjoyed more. I feel like there's a little bit more to it. I definitely feel like it's less intense on my body than no gi. I have a very wrestling heavy no gi game, and even even when I'm winning, it's hard, you know. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I like the gi is it actually is much less intense on my body. It's a little bit easier to control pace and
Yeah,
weight, and I'm much less likely to have somebody fall on me in the gi than in no gi. The floor doesn't get as slippery.
yeah,
It's There's a whole lot of reasons why I prefer it, but I really genuinely also believe that most people should do both. I think that it's important to be a well-rounded athlete, and I think that for most athletes, specializing is like it kind of limits your career track in a way that you really don't want.
yeah.
Um, and I'm seeing it as I'm trying to well, I'm sure we're going to talk about Kairos, but as we're trying to
Mm,
set up the next Kairos and things like that, is there's a large pool of submission only no-gi guys. Our next Kairos event is going to be men. There's a whole pool of them, but getting them to put on a gi is like pulling teeth. Like, put
yep.
on a gi, man. There's money on the line. You're not going to put on a gi for money.
I'm sure they will eventually. But the Nogi game is very engaging, is very fast and very
Yeah.
active. And I know you had one competitor in the kind of recent Grapple Worlds event.
Mhm.
And there's so much Nogi. I mean, obviously that was a Nogi submission. I'm still quite new and learning all these things, but it was active right from the very beginning. However many matches, more than 30 matches throughout the whole event, and the energy was just incredible. But equally, let's get on to talk about Kairos, because even the energy in the room and online for the last Kairos event, which was the female under 55
Yes.
kg division, was incredible. And you host in such a beautiful location. And I remember talking to you on the day before with the Daniel de Groot and Tommy Yip seminar,
Yes.
and your intent to make Escapology BJJ kind of destination gym. So let's talk about Kairos and kind of filter in some of the Escapology BJJ kind of ethos and values.
Yeah. So the Kairos event, for people who don't know, it's as we've done it in the past, it's an 8-person bracket. Sorry, 10-person bracket. 10. It was either 8 or 10, I can't remember, but the each round is a Grand Prix, so everybody fights everybody in their side of the bracket, and then the match is decided by coin flip. So you will either fight in the gi or you'll fight in no gi, and every single match is decided based on a coin flip. So you don't know who you're going to fight or what you're going to fight in. So you have to come to the event pretty much prepared to do anything, which to me is like a really good indication of a very well-rounded athlete. Can this
Yeah.
athlete come and actually make adjustments day of? Like, are they actually responsive to the situation that they're in?
Mm.
Or did they come prepared only to do one thing? And that's kind of that's really important for me as a coach. I really like to see my athletes well-rounded. I don't teach specialists. I teach people to do all of it. that's what the sport is,
Yeah.
and you don't have to like all of it, but you should be capable of doing all of it. Like, I don't like half guard, but I can do it. Um,
There's some of us that absolutely love half guard, only for a
I
little
know,
while
I
though.
know, I know. It becomes much less fun when people start grabbing your head, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
But just
I
the fact.
sounds like that there's a development, a game development that's required, not just from
Yes.
myself, but maybe from others as well.
It's punishing, it's a punishing position. But yeah, that's basically the thing with Kairos is that we want to bring in exciting athletes that don't get a lot of airtime, maybe because they are well-rounded, because they are
Yeah,
presenting not specialized skill sets, but like a wide array of skill sets.
yeah,
And we want to bring those people in, platform them. We want to bring in people that we know are contributing positively to the industry, who are, you know, inclusive, who are good coaches, who are, you know, bringing the values that we see as important to the community. Um, and that's one of the reasons why we started that event in the first place, was because women were very rarely getting the opportunity to fight for prize money,
yeah.
and that's kind of where the whole thing started, basically.
Talk to me about the values that you're kind of looking for and that kind of resonate from Escapology, BJJ, and Kairos.
The jiu-jitsu community as a whole is full of really archaic coaching practices, some really like destructive coaching practices. I've seen some really horrible things, and I know that there's better practice out there. I know that there's a better way to coach. And don't think that when you um, create those horrible environments, they never stay isolated. They always spread to the wider community. Those kids that are harmed go out, and they carry that hurt with them forever.
Yeah,
And I know that there's a way to coach that doesn't include that kind of thing. And I want to use our gym as a proof of concept for that. I
yeah.
know that there's a better way to create high level athletes. And I know that it takes time and it takes energy and it's not a fast turnaround, but I know it exists and I know it's there. And that is what we're trying to do.
I love hearing the passion and commitment that you have for this. And it obviously comes from a place of knowing. Um, let's talk a little bit about that. Where at the beginning of the episode, I mentioned about the sport being as inclusive as possible, and you creating an environment and a community that is inclusive.
Yes.
But where have you kind of? Before we started recording, it sounds like you've had a really positive experience, but equally know where environments, schools, academies aren't as inclusive as they could be. Tell me about
Yes.
some of those experiences, at least from your perspective.
Yeah, so I have been very lucky. I won't say that my training environments have been perfect, but I have been very, very lucky in the fact that I have had a series of male coaches who have never been abusive towards me, who have never treated me badly, who have never overstepped any boundaries. And I think that having those coaches in place to kind of be protective will protect you from a lot of stuff. There were
Yeah,
still students that were inappropriate. There's always going to be inappropriate behavior in jiu-jitsu academies, but I have been very lucky in the coaches that I've had that have not tolerated it. But I also know equally from speaking to hundreds and hundreds of women over the years that
yeah,
most environments are toxic. Like a
yeah,
lot of environments are toxic, and they're toxic from, you know, tiny little ways in just, you know, the way that the coach speaks to you, all the way up to like the illegal ways of being toxic. You know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
there's a huge spectrum of bad behavior that
yeah,
jujitsu coaches engage in, and
yeah,
just because you're on the less illegal side of it doesn't mean that it's not horrific, and doesn't
yeah,
mean that it will carry, and doesn't mean that it doesn't have far reaching ripple effects over
yeah,
time.
yeah. Do you think there's anything around us as individuals, male or female or whatever we identify as, having kind of some element of boundaries, some element of knowing and awareness about situations? Because we can go through different schools or academies and sometimes have a kind of sixth sense that something's not quite right, whether we really know that that's a toxic environment or not. But it's how can we best serve ourselves to seek out those great academies and the great coaches that are going to support our journey going forwards?
I think the best thing, that if you want to be an environment that is open and welcoming and like includes everybody, if that is a thing that you value,
Mm.
then when you walk in the door, you should be able to look around and see that it's that environment. People ask us a lot at the gym why we don't have women's classes. I don't have women's classes. I won't ever teach women's classes. It's just not a thing that I do. And that's because I want women to walk in the door and recognize that they are welcome here all the time, not in a women's class. When
Yeah,
you walk in the door, you're just a person coming into my gym to train. That's it. It doesn't matter who you are or how old you are or what gender you are or what you identify as. I none of that matters to me because we're here to learn jujitsu. That's what we're here for. And what you are is separate from that. And your value as a human being is separate from that. Uh, I am a coach. I'm here for jujitsu. I am here
yeah,
to make you have a nice time on the mats.
yeah.
That's my job.
I feel a sense of relief when you're speaking in that way around the inclusivity that everyone is welcome. There are no kind of dedicated classes, and we're all kind of equal in that sense. We're all meeting each other. All of the other BS, forgive me,
Yes.
outside of the jiu-jitsu mats can just go do one. And actually, we're meeting great minds, great like-minded people on the mats at jiu-jitsu. That is it.
And that means that we have a very, paradoxically, that means that we have a very high intolerance for intolerance. Right. And that means that
Yeah,
we have a very high intolerance in our gym for bad behavior. We have
yeah,
a very high intolerance for abusive behavior. We have a very high intolerance for even like clicky behavior.
yeah,
It's not something that is acceptable. And the only reason that we're able to kind of create the environment that we have is because we have very strict rules about behavior. And either you are meeting the standards of behavior or you are not. And if you are not, you are not welcome to stay. And that is the long and short of it. And I think that if more people had those kinds of standards and were willing to stand up and say, these are what I expect when you walk through the door, you would have a diverse environment. You would have women
yeah.
who are willing and able to stay in those classes and do those kinds of things.
I am overjoyed that you're saying these things, Chelsea, and wish more coaches and environments to be like yours.
Yeah, I think that every coach is different and everybody is going to want to train in a different environment, and I recognize that my training environment is not one that everybody wants to be in, but what I want is for the people who want to be in that environment to come and train with me. I don't want other people to come in and try and step in and change the environment that I'm trying to make, because it's not for them. It's
Yeah,
for the people that want to be there. And I think that on a business level is something that more coaches need to embrace. Like,
yeah,
you want to create the environment you want to train in, and you can't bend the rules that you set, because those are the rules that you set so that you make the environment that you want, whatever that environment is. It doesn't have to
yeah.
be the way that I see it. It can be the way that you see it. It can be, it can be way, way chiller than the way I teach classes, because I'm not even allowed to teach beginners anymore, because the last time I did, I made them throw up. So
Okay, we may or may not ask about that after the break.
but that's what I mean. Like, I am not an everybody coach. I
Yeah,
recognize that beginners are not my strong suit. That's not my cup of tea. I have other coaches for that. But every coach is going to have a way that they want to train, right? And
yeah.
you make the rules so that you can train in the environment you want to stay in.
This episode is sponsored by Kairos Pro Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Kairos Pro Jiu-Jitsu is a winner-takes-all pro jiu-jitsu event brought to you by Escapology BJJ. They regularly run bespoke tournaments for high-level professional jiu-jitsu athletes from the UK, Europe, and beyond. Expect to learn more about these high-level competitors, how they are motivated, their mindset, and their ambition in the world of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Go and listen or watch the podcast by searching up Kairos Pro Jiu Jitsu Podcast on your favourite podcast platform. This is the Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast with me, Lou Temlett, coming to you from the UK. I really need you to subscribe and review this show on whichever platform you are listening or watching on. If you could do that for me right now, I would be forever grateful, just so it can fulfill its vision for the future. If you could do that for me right now, I would be forever grateful. And as always, go and check out the clips on Instagram and YouTube. Today, I'm having a conversation with Chelsea Lee. So, Chelsea, you're a black belt of a number of years. Just tell us how long you've been training for, Chelsea.
Oh, how long? I started training in 1999. So how many years is that now? A lot of
26,
years.
20,
Yeah,
no, more. Yeah,
yeah,
26, 26
26. Yeah,
years.
I got my black belt in 2014. So I've been a black
Wow.
belt 11 years now.
Okay, so talk to me about not teaching the beginners.
Okay. Um, I'm notoriously tough as a coach. I've just started to embrace this about myself.
Good.
But I think that it's important to have coaches that have different levels of intensity. So my husband is a little bit softer. Like he's just a little bit of a softer character. He's less intense. He doesn't demand as much of them. And I have beginners coaches that are way less intense and don't demand as much. I demand a lot. I'm very demanding and I have high expectations. And something about my American accent means I walk into a room full of British people and they immediately comply with anything I say. So they're
Yes.
terrified. So so when I walk into a room full of beginners, they see a black belt, they hear an American accent, and then they immediately comply, which means that they often end up puking. That's why I'm not allowed to teach beginners anymore.
Okay, we'll leave that one there. But talking about the American accent, some of you may well have heard Chelsea commentating on a number of shows like Kairos and Polaris. And I also want to ask you about your recent reffing
Ah,
experience,
yes.
Chelsea. I'd
Yeah.
forgotten about that one, but it's relatively recent. So, talk to me about the commentating piece, because you do it so eloquently. I love the way that you and Tom commentate or together on things. There's just that beautiful balance. If any of you haven't watched or listened to Chelsea and Tom commentating matches, please go and find some of those links and listen. But talk to me about where that all started and how you managed to kind of work together so eloquently.
I think Tom actually started doing commentary before I did. He started on like the first Polaris. I think he's done the most Polarises out of anybody. But I got started a little bit after that, and I just started getting kind of invitations. I have a good rapport with Simon from Showtex, and he really enjoys my work. So because he works a lot of shows, I get kind of pulled into shows around the country, and then I started requesting Vanessa English as like one of my commentary partners, and we have been traveling around doing shows together, which is really cool. We just did the last Enyo together, and I think we might be the only like all female commentary team in the UK, and
Yep.
it's just great. Like it's really nice. There, Tom and Vanessa are two of my favorite people to talk about jujitsu with. It really helps that we know each other well and we've trained together for so long, because it makes it easier to find things to talk about and find inroads into conversations, because I know how they train, they know how I train. There's jokes to be made. There's a conversation to be had. We can talk about whatever we've done together and how it relates to the technique that we're seeing. It makes it much easier to fill time and
Yeah.
space too.
I do love it. And the reffing experience, and uh, the latest Polaris. Talk to me about
Yeah,
that.
so the latest Polaris was the first women's teams event. Um, really, really exciting event. I think one of the best events they've had in quite a while, to be honest with you. Like even the undercard, some really, really fun matches on there. Finn Carey's match was really good, as well as Libby Genge, um,
Yes.
doing just amazing work. But yeah, so they asked me to come and be on the card, be a ref for the card because we had been having some tough conversations, specifically with Scramble, who is my sponsor. We have been having some tough conversations about the representation of women in the sport, and I know that they have very good intentions, which is why I was willing to sit down with them and talk. Um, I felt like they weren't doing a very good job of representing women, of supporting women, of like platforming them in the way that they needed to be platformed. And I think that one of the things that a lot of men in the sport do, especially when they have good intentions, is they become blind to where there are actually no women existing
Yeah.
in the space, right? Until I told them that they didn't have a single female on their staff at Polaris, they didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And I think that they don't have bad intentions about it, but it becomes very easy to become blind and surrounded by all the same type of person,
Yes.
uh, until somebody talks to you about it. And then,
Mm.
as women in the sport, it becomes really easy to get angry and to be frustrated and to just kind of tune it out and just be like, you know what? I don't want to deal with it anymore. I don't want to fight this fight anymore. I don't want to argue with them about whether or not I deserve to have a shot to do whatever it is that I want to do.
Yeah.
Um, and so when I sat down with them and I had this conversation about, you need to do a better job, not just representing athletes, but women have to be represented at the whole, like every level of your organization. Otherwise, you're not
Yeah.
actually platforming women. You're
Yeah.
leaving them there, and then they can't ever progress. And they took it really seriously. That
Good.
they took it extremely seriously. They got Sam Cooke onto comms for the commentary team. They asked me to do the refing, which honestly I wasn't expecting them to do, but it was a really, really nice gesture from them.
Yeah.
Um, like I appreciate that it becomes an echo chamber, right? And
Yeah.
one of the things that we're trying to do is talk to these people who have good intentions, but just
Yes.
don't know how to take the step forward and make it better.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why, even though I really dislike refing, I really don't like it. um, I I said, you know what? Yes, yes, I will do this
Mm.
because
Yeah.
you're making the effort. We have to do this together. And I
Yeah.
think that it was so important for them. And I'm really proud of them. Like I'm
Good.
really proud of them.
I always listen to podcasts before I record my own podcast. And I was just listening to today's episode, which is obviously now in the past. Chris Williamson and Simon Sinek talking about kind of relationships. And Simon was sharing that everyone thinks they are good. No one thinks that they are doing anything wrong, but it's having that open communication to be able to share um, that things aren't quite as they seem, because everyone has that, technically, that good intent. Nobody is kind of talking in a negative, bad way. So it's
Yeah.
just sharing that, and you taking the steps to have that open and upfront conversation in, sounds like a really gentle, compassionate and proactive way that started to make those moves. And what we don't know, we don't know. So it does take someone like you and others to make that step, to be able to make change in any aspect of our lives. And primarily, we're all in the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu world. So
Yeah.
we've got to approach it in a way that is, for me, has to echo the values of, kindness and compassion, and here to support and grow our community, because without individuals like you, we can't keep growing, to have more of an inclusive environment. And it sounds like you're doing really important work.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's exhausting. That's one of the things that I'm finding is that,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm constantly fighting the same battle, but I and I understand why women get tired of trying to constantly have this argument, like
Yeah.
constantly trying to reaffirm that, hey, I belong in this room. Like, I
Yeah.
belong in this room. I've done the work to be in this room. Um, I get it. I get why it's so frustrating and why it's so exhausting. And I think that one of the things that I found now is that I have to find the people who are willing to actually hear you when you say that, because a
Yeah.
lot of people will brush you off and continue to ignore you and continue to treat you like you don't belong in the room. But the people who are actually listening and willing to make changes, they're not perfect, and expecting them to be perfect from the get go isn't fair to them.
Yeah.
Even though it's so exhausting and frustrating and irritating to deal with it, um, they are actually capable of growth and change. And I hate that the environment demands us to be perfect, right?
Mm.
Like, I'm here, I'm not trying to call out Scramble, because I think what they did was great. I think what they did was amazing, and they made mistakes, and the willingness to fix them should be what's highlighted, not the
Yes.
mistake in the first place. The fact that they were willing to step up and say, hey, we messed
Yeah.
this up, let's fix it, let's do something about it, let's take your suggestions and let's make them real,
Yeah.
and that is what is important, and not the outcome, and also not the mistake in the first place, I don't
Yeah.
think.
No, and it sounds I this conversation for me is echoing back to our goal of pulling on a submission, completing a submission, but actually it's about the progress along the way, with very much a growth mindset that is the progress rather than the end goal. We'd all like the medal, but if we don't document and kind of be proactive in the step-by-step approach along the way and show up with our mistakes, our flaws, our inadequacies, whatever it happens to be, with a sense of vulnerability along the way, then others won't be able to model that behavior. We have to make it okay to make mistakes and to just exist the best we possibly can, because we all have good intent.
Absolutely. And I think, especially like I was saying, as a woman, in the industry, I think that men who have good intentions often feel a lot of shame when they realize that the things that they were doing were hurting the women
Yeah.
around them,
Yeah.
and we have to recognize that shame, they're carrying that
Yeah.
is real. And you have to be mindful of that when you're trying to make things better as well.
Yeah. Yes, it's very much a case of that sensitivity, appreciation that,
Yeah.
we all have different feelings, and whatever they are at any point in time, they are valid and, true. We're both parents. We both have children that
Yes.
train Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And, we're bringing through the next generation, and, all the changes that we're all making right now, it's going to be a very different story for that next generation of athletes and competitors and practitioners in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that like the work I'm doing now means that when my daughter's big enough to kind of like understand what's happening, she can look at and see that there are women at
Yeah.
all these levels of this organization. She doesn't have to just be an athlete. She could be
Yeah.
whatever. And,
Yeah.
she might not do jujitsu, but it applies across everything, right? It's
Yeah,
not just
absolutely.
jujitsu.
Yeah, we all have a kind of a place to play in this game. For me, it's the podcasting. It's about growing the community and raising those voices, like you were saying. Those athletes that are all rounded often don't appear on the main card of
No.
submission grappling events. But how can we showcase those individuals and raise their game and bring their platform up? Because it's not just about raising their game. Actually, everyone else around them has that kind of, you know, additional level of awareness and publicity, really.
Yeah, opportunity, right? You want to give opportunity to the
Yeah.
people who maybe don't get it otherwise.
Yeah. And having the mix. So I loved watching Kairos, the under 55, the stream, and I also loved watching the Polaris stream. Often I can't get to these events. Sometimes I can, and I will make the most of it.
Well, Paris was in Wales. It was quite a drive.
It's not too far for me, but when I came up to
Yeah.
Escapology BJJ, I actually hadn't realized how far it was from Bath. And I'm pleased I didn't look the week before. I literally, the day before, I was like, oh, it's going to take me 3.5, 4 hours to get there. Okay, I best wake up a bit earlier.
Yeah,
But if
there's not
we,
really any good way to get across the country. You get stuck by Birmingham no matter what you do.
if you want to do something you really love, you will pull out all the stops and you will
Gotta
just
do
do it. And that's the point.
it.
But the online streaming, and the excitement that the commentary brings, I think is really quite incredible.
Yeah,
Do
it
you
keeps
get
us
that sense of excitement when you're commentating?
yeah, yeah, I do. I really enjoy commentary. I I think that I get really stressed about like making sure that there's no dead time on the stream, but that's about it. I
Yeah.
love watching jiu-jitsu. I like watching matches. I like breaking matches down. So commentary is just to me, commentary is like coaching, but removed from the athlete almost. It's the exact same thing I'd say to my athletes. It's just they don't hear it. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it to a wider audience.
Yeah. I feel like everyone needs their matches commentated on, actually. I was listening to a stream the other day or just some clips, and I was like, that would be so helpful. Even after every training, could someone just commentate on my matches, please?
That's often what we do with our students. Like we just do running commentary while they're while they're fighting. Uh, but some of those things are more specific to them because we know them a little bit better. But
Yeah.
really, commentary and coaching are the same skill set. Just like I said, one's into a microphone and one's to an athlete.
Yeah. Not quite the same things. Um, Talk to me about Escapology BJJ and your vision for the business, because it's not just a gym. This is something quite special.
Yeah, so we just moved at the beginning of the year into our hopefully forever space in the center of Cambridge, and the new space allows us a lot more physical space, but it also allows us a lot more schedule space and that kind of stuff. So, one of the things that Tom and I are really interested in is community building. We think that it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is the vehicle by which that we are trying to accomplish all of these things. But we believe that when you build a business, the business can operate ethically, can be financially solvent, and can also be a community support for a number of people. So what we're trying to do is create jobs, essentially jobs for people who can create a career out of jiu-jitsu that doesn't involve competition, because a competitive career is, you have a very limited time to pursue that, and not everybody makes it. There have to be other avenues for making money in jiu-jitsu other than competitive jiu-jitsu. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things we want to create, like career paths for people who love the sport but maybe don't have it in them to be like a professional athlete. We want to create support systems for kids to learn resilience, responsibility, discipline, all those kinds of things. We want to create a healthy space for kids so that they are doing the appropriate amount of movement. I read a horrible uh, stat the other day that said that even on days where in the UK, even on days where kids do a sport, they often aren't meeting their minimum like physical activity level. And
Yeah.
that's horrific because it's only 60 minutes a day. So
Yeah.
if your kid is in a sport practice and they still aren't meeting their minimum daily requirement of movement, something has gone horribly wrong in the system.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that we're trying to rectify. Our practices are very active. They are only 45 minutes long for most kids, but they are incredibly active. So at least we're getting lots and lots of activity in.
Yeah.
Um, so basically, all we have the ability to control is our little compound, right? That's our area, and what we're trying to do is create a space where people can be physically and mentally healthy, create a place where they can build connections, essentially a third space that they can exist in,
Yeah.
more or less.
I think some of us do feel like our jiu-jitsu schools our second home.
Yeah.
We spend probably as much time as we can possibly get away with if we have family commitments or work commitments. And I'm sure most of us would love to spend much more time there. But Escapology BJJ, when you talk about mental health, one of the things that struck me when I visited was the height of the ceilings.
Mm.
Now, I know you're very blessed in the building that you're in, but it really does make a sense of well-being and, you know, technically headspace to be able
Yeah.
to have that freedom to move around and to just focus on what is going on in that moment without having to be influenced by, you know, this, that, and the other around the place. It's a very nurturing environment from an outsider's perspective. And I do also love the concept of the armbar cafe. Where where did that come from,
Oh, one of
Chelsea?
our students just pulled that out one day. He was like, "We're gonna call it the arm bar." It's like, "Okay, we're gonna call it the arm bar."
It's
um,
definitely worth going to. I've tried your rose syrup in coffee
oh
and
yeah,
your lavender syrup. There are always so many delights to experience, as well as lots of other provisions that you have in your location.
yeah. I think that the research all suggests that people are happiest in beautiful spaces, and that jujitsu gyms can be beautiful spaces. Like,
Mm.
we're very lucky with the building that we're in. We're in an old one-room schoolhouse. It's a gorgeous building, but we used to be in an industrial building, and every time people walked into our gym, they were absolutely floored just by how nice it was inside. And this is another thing. This is something that I learned from Hafa and Guy Mendez at AOJ. Uh, a space that's beautiful, that's welcoming, that is open and clean will bring a greater variety of people through the door. A gym that is dirty and dark and smelly will bring people who are happy to train in dirty, dark, and smelly gyms, and that's it. And that's fine, but any gym can be improved. I'm talking about like just the physical appearance of
Yeah,
it. Any gym can be improved, and it will make a huge difference from a business perspective when you do it.
yeah,
um, Kids are the backbone of jiu-jitsu gyms for the most part. Like, they are the
yeah,
ones that are carrying your financial load. Like, the parents are carrying that financial load. You will get so many more kids through the door if the parents aren't afraid they're going to get staff when they walk in the door.
yeah.
uh, this is something that I spend a lot of time consulting other gyms on. But this is so important. I cannot overstate the importance of just cleaning your gym, picking up the clutter, making it happy. Like, humans are stressed when they walk into places that are heavily cluttered. It's just the reality of our like psyche.
Yeah.
You can improve your business just by cleaning the mats.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just bare minimum, Chelsea. You and I both know that. But
Yeah. But
what
even just,
Escapology?
beauty,
Yeah,
bringing beauty into the gym will improve your business.
100%. Now, talk to me about your vision for Escapology BJJ, as well as yours and Tom's kind of vision for the future to grow and build this incredible community.
Right now, we are only planning on having the one gym. So our gym, as it currently is going to be our only gym. We have no plans on ever having a second one or anything like that. We have a handful of affiliates. But again, one of my goals is to grow our affiliation locally so that our affiliates can also take advantage of our facility, of our coaches, of all that kind of stuff. So we have a handful of them around us. And one of the things that we're trying to do is share coaches. So affiliates are getting our coaches going to their gyms a couple times a month, and then we're spreading knowledge around. We're making sure that the standard of instruction stays high, and again, focusing on localism, focusing on building a community that we can reach out and touch,
Yeah.
is really important for us, because people need connection, not online. They need it physically, in person. And that's one of the things that we are finding more than ever. People need to be around other people, because being online makes us weird. Like,
Yes.
that's it. Being online makes people weird. So you need to be around other people who will teach you how to be a people. And it's
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
It's very important. So whilst we're recording this online, I hope I've not
Yes.
come across too
But
weird, Chelsea.
we have met in person.
We have. I'm just kind of clearing off that label and the
Yeah.
caveat around weirdness, because Vanessa and I spoke about being weird, and
Weird
that was
in
her.
a good way and weird in a bad way.
It's all good. It's all good. Chelsea, I love the building of community and kind of that spread from your hub, and just kind of slowly but surely and securely building up affiliates and coaching facility, you know, experience in your local area, because um, it's within reach, it's available, and it's just kind of spreading the word. And I think that's really important when growing a successful business. Do you
Yeah.
have any other tips for um, school owners, coaches, to increase and develop their own businesses?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that every coach should do is make sure that you have, or every business owner, sorry, is you should have a really good understanding of the numbers that are associated with your business: retention rates, attrition rates,
Yeah.
how many leads you have coming in every month, and how many of those get transferred into actual students. All of these numbers you need to know. And then you can start looking at problems. Where are your problems arising? Are they arising in the number of leads that you're getting? Probably not. It's pretty easy to get leads at this point. So,
Yeah.
is the problem happening between the lead and the initial like visit, or is the problem happening between the initial visit and the sign up? Where is the problem in your process? Are you losing students? Where you can't know any of those things because that's not vibes, that's numbers. So
Yeah.
if you don't have the numbers, you need to know the numbers. That's the first thing. The second thing is to do an audit of your prices. Most jiu-jitsu gyms don't charge enough. Look at swimming lessons, look at gymnastics lessons, look at football, look at things that are going on around you, specifically things that require specialized coaching: rock climbing,
Yeah.
gymnastics. Swimming is a good one because it requires a specialized facility as well. Look at how much they're charging for lessons per lesson. Do the math. How much are you charging per lesson? Does it line up? Are you charging £2 or £3 a lesson because you shouldn't be? You're undervaluing your gym and your service, right? And people, you're not going to get more students by being too cheap. It actually has the opposite impact. People
Yeah.
want to believe that what they're paying for has value. And I'm not saying to overcharge people either. That's not at all what I'm saying. But most people aren't on that end of the spectrum. Most people
Yeah.
are way on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So these are the first things you should do. And once you've done that, then you can kind of assess where your problems actually lie. But most of the people that we interact with don't actually know where their problems are when they come to us for advice.
Yeah.
They think their problem is something that's completely unrelated to what's actually causing them the problem in their business.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice.
No, it sounds like listening to facts, actually categorizing the numbers, the leads, the conversions, and the number of students, and then seeing the gaps. Any good kind of business model
Yeah,
can look at those things rather than a intangible something.
yeah,
So it
vibes.
feels very solid.
The amount of people that we talk to that are just kind of like, oh, I'm having problems getting students in, and it's like that's not a thing. It's either the problems with the leads or the problems with the conversion, or
Yeah.
there's a problem here, but it's not just getting students in. That's not the issue. You have to know what the problem is to be able to solve it.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing those gems, Chelsea, because I think it's really important. You're modeling a great business and community building that a number of us, if we were in that situation, would be aspiring to replicate very,
That's what
very
I'm
quickly.
trying to do. And I
Chelsea,
figure once we know how to build this, we can help our affiliates
yeah,
too, and then everybody kind of grows together.
yeah, amazing. How can people follow your journey and any other kind of call to action that you want to share as we're coming to the end?
You can find me on Instagram at Chelsea Lee. My gym is at Escapology BJJ. You can find it escapologybjj.com. Tom and I have an online site that includes technical learning for students, but it also includes business coaching and coaching for coaches. So all three of those things are covered. Most of what we do now is focused on business and coaching, coaching coaches and business coaching for business owners. But yeah, basically that's it.
Amazing. Now, if someone were to want to visit, of course, we all want to visit your gym. How can we go about arranging that and kind of getting in contact with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so we welcome all visitors. We are a Waikiki only gym. I'm just going to say that. But if you want to come and visit, we welcome all visitors. The best thing to do is either email us. There's a form on our website, or you can message us on the Escapology Instagram. Our manager will get back to you with some questions. We'll fill out your insurance form, and then you'll be free to come into any of our classes.
Fantastic. I highly recommend having a visit and just experiencing what Escapology BJJ is about, just to feel that sense of well-being and community, which really is quite incredible, Chelsea. So I just want to send my heartfelt thanks to you and Tom, because you have created something very, very special.
Well, thank you for having me.
You are welcome. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for telling your friends about this show. And as soon as this episode ends, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and a review. Thanks again for listening. Catch you on the next episode of the Jiu Jitsu Lou podcast.